guys, welcome back to Crafty Uncovers. Today's story takes place in a small rural city called Carnation, which can be found in King County, Washington. It's got approximately 2,000 people in the population, not very big at all, kind of place where everybody knows everybody. So it's Christmas Eve 2007, and the Anderson family, like any other normal family, were planning Christmas. We had Wayne, who was 62. He worked for Boeing. He'd been married to Judy for 31 years. Judy was 61. She worked for the post office, and she was known pretty much by everybody. They had 3 children. They've got Mary, they had Scott, and they had Michele. And they had invited Scott and Michele over for dinner. I believe Mary couldn't make it. And Michele was coming with her boyfriend, Joseph McEnroe, and Scott would be coming with his wife, Erica, and their 2 children, Olivia and Nathan. Olivia was 5 and Nathan only 3 years old. Judy was in the back room. She was wrapping presents and she was getting ready for the family to arrive and for them to celebrate Christmas Eve together and to have a wonderful time. Michele and Joseph arrived early, I think, because they lived on the grounds of the property. So Mary and Wayne were in the main house, and then Michele and Joseph were in a mobile home about 200 yards up the path. So they were living on the property grounds. So they arrived early. Now, while Judy was wrapping the presents, I like to think maybe she was singing to herself. I don't know. She heard a gunshot. Now, what had happened is Michele had taken a shot at her dad. Fucked up. Michele claimed later that the gun had jammed. So Judy, hearing the gunshot, jumps up, runs to the living room where the gunshot sound had come from, and then just as she turned up, she saw Joseph shoot her husband. Must have been fucking terrifying. I can't even imagine. And then very, very quickly the gun was turned on to Judy. So she was shot twice by Joseph, but she didn't instantly die. And then it's reported that he apologized to her and then shot her between the eyes, obviously killing her. Now, the rest of the family hadn't arrived yet, so I can only assume that this was done prior to the expected arrival time. Michele and Joseph then dragged the 2 bodies through the house and out to the garden shed. When Wayne's body was later examined, you could even see a footprint on his back. There's like no respect for the dead whatsoever. No respect for these people. So he's been stamped on, and they've tried to push them into the shed. They then cleaned up the blood using carpet and rags. They even burnt some of the evidence, and then they went back into the house and they waited for Scott and his family to arrive. So this is entirely premeditated. There is nothing about this so far that says accident, spur of the moment. It was definitely premeditated. So Scott entered the house first, and I'm not sure if Michele had the gun waiting or if she raised the gun, but Scott saw the gun and charged at his sister. Michele later claimed that she's not sure if she shot him twice or if she shot him 4 times. Either way, he took multiple gun wounds and dropped to the floor. She then shot Erica. Erica was shot 3 times. Somehow, and I can only assume this is like the energy of a mother trying to protect her children, she dragged her body over the sofa and grabbed the telephone, and she dialed 911. What you're going to hear next is awful, but it's the 911 call that was made.
Hello?
As you can hear, she was screaming, and then the phone went dead. And what happened was, if Joseph ripped the phone from her hand, removed the batteries, and then destroyed the phone on the floor. Erica then pleaded for her life and for the lives of her children, saying, "You don't have to do this," at which Joseph replied, "Yes, we do." And he shot her in the head. He then turned to Olivia and shot her in the head. And then he looked at Nathan. Nathan had picked up the batteries that Joseph had thrown on the floor and was handing them back to Joseph. Joseph's reported of saying that there was a look of complete comprehension, as if he understood. And then Joseph shot him in the head. I mean, I don't understand how you can look a 3-year-old in the face who obviously understands what's going on and then kill him and just end his life. It's incomprehensible for me. I hope it is for you guys as well, because, like, if not, maybe see a shrink. They then didn't clean up those bodies. They left the house. They initially drove towards Canada, which would be north, and then they changed their mind and they drove south towards Oregon. But then they decided to not go to either destination. So on Boxing Day, or 2 days after Christmas Eve, depending on if you do Boxing Day, they returned back to the house, and what they intended to do was to pretend that they found the bodies and phone the police. But when they arrived back, the detectives were already there. The bodies had already been discovered. The bodies were discovered by a woman called Linda Teeley. She was a work colleague and best friend of Judy. Judy had meant to be at work, and so when she didn't turn up, Linda obviously went to see what was wrong and to make sure she was okay and like not sick or whatever. And Linda turned up and found the bodies. I'm going to play you now Linda's 911 call.
911?
There's been a murder. There's 3 people dead that I can see right now.
Inside?
I just came up. She works with me.
Inside a house?
Yes.
What do you see?
There's a baby and a man and a woman, and she's my best friend.
And this is your best friend?
Well, you know, looking at the woman that's dead out there, I'm not sure it's Judy. There's no light in that room.
As you can hear, she first thought that the woman on the floor was Judy, but on closer inspection realised it wasn't. So they hadn't actually found Judy and Wayne's bodies yet. They'd only found the ones in the house. They obviously later discovered the other 2 bodies by the shed. What the detectives did notice about Michele and Joseph, neither of them really asked what was going on. There was no, like, my parents, oh my god, or whatever. There was nothing. This obviously concerned the detectives, so they questioned them separately, and eventually both of them admitted what they had done. So what the fuck was the motive? Because, like, who turns around and shoots their family on Christmas Eve? And then shows no remorse. So the motive was money, anger, paranoia. Amazing. Scott had borrowed money from Michele however many years ago, hadn't paid it back. Now, I saw one person claim that it was like 40 grand. I couldn't find evidence of that. So it could have been up to 40,000. We don't know. But anyway, he borrowed money from his sister, hadn't paid it back. According to Michele, her parents were taking his side, and they were even laying on the pressure because they wanted Michele and Joseph to start paying rent for the mobile home that was on their property. Michele said she was tired of everybody stepping on her. So at the time Joseph was working, he was a retail clerk, but Michele had been unemployed for a year. I don't know if she gave up work or if she was fired, but she used to be into like security and that kind of thing. And she would also do face painting at carnivals, and so she was working, but for some reason she had been unemployed for a year. So money was tight. Obviously money was a big issue. There are quotes from past neighbours saying that Michele and Joseph always used to argue, and a lot of the time it was over money. So it took 8 years before this went to trial. Part of that was because they had to decide if they wanted to give the death penalty as an option to the jury. I can completely understand why the death penalty would be a thing. Shooting 6 people is huge. 2 of them being children makes it so much worse, so I can completely understand why the death penalty was placed on the cards. Joseph was the first one to be trialed. He testified that Michele had turned him into an attack dog. She was coercing him, and she made him believe that her parents were wrong, and that they were out to get her and Joseph. A member of his family also testified to say that he was prone to being manipulated because as a child he was bullied and abused by his mother. So he kind of looked for women who gave that kind of behaviour. Michele did say that it was all her and it was her fault. And the tape was played at Joseph's trial. However, the prosecutor accused him of changing the way he dressed, changing the way he did his hair, and even changing his speech pattern to try to deceive the jury. So he was convicted of 6 aggravated murder charges, but he wasn't given the death penalty. Because the jury didn't give a unanimous vote for the death penalty, he was actually 8 against 4. So 8 people said yes to the death penalty, 4 people said no. Because it wasn't a unanimous decision, he didn't get the death penalty. He got life imprisonment, no parole. Michele's trial was about 6 months later. She didn't testify at all, but they removed the death penalty option from her trial. Because Joseph's jury didn't give a unanimous vote, they decided to just remove it as an option. So she too was charged with 6 counts of aggravated murder, given life without parole. She is currently at Washington Correction Center for Women. He is at Washington State Penitentiary. And I think I speak for everybody sane when I say I hope they rot in hell. It's one thing to shoot, like, one person who's wronged you. Who the fuck wipes out their entire family? And, like, I watched her in her trial, and there was very little remorse. There was some. She didn't come across like sociopath, no empathy kind of thing, but it wasn't a lot. Joseph looked like he did, but I don't know if I believe his act at all. He had moments where he'd have little mental breakdowns while on the stand, and I don't know if that was purely for show or if he was trying to show that he couldn't possibly have done it in his right mind. I don't know. I know Michele tried to claim insanity. She tried to put the insanity plea in, and that was chucked out of the water straight away. She was found fit to stand for trial, so definitely not. That was the case of the Carnation murders. Both of them are rotting away in prison, no chance of parole, so they will die behind bars, which is what they deserve. I don't want to say I hope you enjoyed it. It's like the worst thing in the world to ask, did you enjoy listening to my true crime story? But you know what I mean. If this kind of shit interests you, hit the subscribe button. Drop me a like. Drop me a comment if you like. If there's a case out there you want me to talk about, or you think I should look into that I might not never have heard of, drop it in the comments. Let me know. Until next time, look after yourselves and take care of each other. And I'll see you soon.